So you have something called behavior first model. Did you come
Yeah.
up with it yourself?
I'm going to say yes, and I'm going to be stung at some point by someone who's going to claim that they probably created it. No, it's been talked about for a long time, a behavior first model, and it's been back and forth in terms of whether it's been deemed as a positive trait or not. It's been something that I have always built my recruitment strategies around because I started working with many underrepresented groups 8, 9, 10 years ago. I saw the potential existed there, and felt like it was something that I always wanted to build my recruitment around because it's a tricky market and there's so many people getting missed out. So I call it grow your own model. That's where I created it for my clients. It was to let a client grow their own talent.
What attracted you to that philosophy in the first place? You said a lot of people are being overlooked because they don't have the right skills, but they have the right behavior, but nobody knows.
You have a lot of people out there who have the right skills and the right behaviors, but they're getting missed out for one. There's people out there who don't interview well, who don't know how to write a CV, haven't had the support both from educational or parental guardian type institutions. I wanted to start supporting people who had the right skills, had the right behaviors in terms of they had that growth and they had that resilience, but maybe they lacked certain other aspects of their behaviors and we needed to support them. And I felt like these people are being missed out because simply put, they're not putting themselves their front foot forward in interviews because they've got a confidence challenge and whatnot. That's where it all started. And then moving forward, I spoke to ex-athletes. I spoke to people that have lived disabilities, parental returners, a lot of people in early careers. I think that the athletes being a really good example, people who have got up at 4 or 5 a.m. every day for the last 10, 15, 20 years to do something they're incredibly passionate about. They're driven, they're resilient, their timekeeping's amazing, they're so disciplined. They have so many of these core behaviors that would make up a fantastic employee. But then when it comes to submitting an application for a job, how does an ex gymnast or an ex high jumper come forward in a really packed job market? They don't always have the chance to know someone that's given them a chance. They are a name on an applicant tracking system. They are a CV, and unfortunately, the job of recruiters can be quite hard sometimes because their job is to get through a series of people and make judgments. It was about trying to find ways of unearthing these types of talents and giving them a bit of a platform to succeed.
Okay, sounds amazing. You chose the word behavior over attitude because attitude gets also thrown around quite a bit. Is there a difference
Yeah.
between right behaviors or good behaviors and good attitudes?
There's definitely synergy. There's definitely synergy for sure. I suppose it's maybe changed over the last few years. Maybe just to be that person that would come into the office and would work till 8 o'clock at night. That's how the businesses in the UK and globally were set up for the last 10, 15, 20 years. That's all changing. I think people would come in and would work and would put themselves forward in certain ways. I suppose the market's changed, especially since COVID. Attitude becomes a huge part of it. Team bonding and teamwork is huge. Retention comes around who you're working with, who you're with every day. And I think attitude can be a bit more unsettling for teams. And when it comes to retention, behaviors for me is just somebody that has that right level of resilience, that right level of growth, that potential sometimes. And potential is probably one of the key bits for me. There is a bit of synergy between the two parties, but largely I would always focus on the behavior.
I notice you're mentioning the examples you mentioned are tangible behaviors
Yeah.
rather than more loose concepts. What I really, really like. What are bad behaviors that should be red flag for an applicant that seem to have all the right skills, but the behavior is letting you down?
Yeah, I think disruptive, definitely not really understood what they're coming into. Sometimes when someone's applying for a job, it's about understanding the values of an organization, their goal, their purpose. I think coming in and not being a good match for that, it can often happen in recruitment processes. I always try and encourage it, and especially with my train to deploy model, I build it around both the candidate interviewing the client and the client interviewing the candidate, because if we can get both of those correct, that's the perfect match. That's what adds up to retention. I think it becomes a case of the client needs the candidate so much more now in those technical markets, that they don't always look for the co-match. Similarly, in the other way around, where there are lots of people applying for really in-demand jobs, candidates are probably taking jobs where maybe it isn't the correct match for them. It comes back to that for me, especially with trying to deploy. None of our clients will take somebody on that hasn't had a chance to really understand what that organizations about, what their values are about, what their mission is, what they're doing moving forward. And that's what generates such a strong retention for us, is because there's no shocks. Everyone knows what they're getting into. And it's just a good match kind of from day one. I think you can see it in quite a lot of like leadership surveys, sites, etc. I remember seeing 46% of new hires fail within 18 months. And of those 46 people that fail within 18 months, 89% of them are due to poor attitude or behavioral fit, not the lack of technical skills.
So you could argue the current model that many people hold on to at the moment is behavior loss model. And you want to turn it on its head and put behavior at the heart and center.
Yeah.
For technical and engineering roles, why is
Mhm.
that even more important than compared to other jobs?
It's a lot more tricky, because we have a lot of hiring managers, obviously, that are in a position whereby they don't believe they have the luxury of thinking about behaviors. They just need that hire. It's an in-demand hire. It's an in-demand skill. They don't want to take it for granted that they can get this hire. They're more interested in getting the person offered and placed than they are of making the right match. I think we're in a bit of a short-term gig type philosophy right now, where in those technical skills with the in-demand skills, I think it's a candidate market. It's a candidate market. It's almost like an auction for the best candidates. Candidates know their value. They know they are being approached constantly. They often will take the bigger brand or the bigger salary. That does happen obviously quite a lot. And for that reason, our hiring managers are almost probably taking on a little bit of that. And they're maybe trying not to bite off more they can chew, because they think to themselves, look, we just need to get this person in to do this role. And if we're bringing them in and they're coming in for 6 months or a year, we're getting that talent in for 6 months of the year, and that's stopping that project from failing. That means we're hitting our internal needs, we're hitting our operational needs, but they're not thinking past 12 months. They're not thinking about what the long-term impact of acting in such a way is going to do for them as an organization.
Do you have a story where you initially maybe had resistance to this kind of model, and then when you actually brought in the candidate, introduced, started going through the steps, it worked out beautifully?
No, we do, definitely. I think when I first started working on kind of behavior first model, trying to deploy upskilling, for example, it was more in the digital space at the time. Digital skills massively in demand, probably one of the most in the market. You're probably talking, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, I think this was. And all of a sudden, you've got these new training companies, these new boot camps, these new academies, all people that we at Rullion will partner with to deliver our train to deploy model. We were introducing them into our clients, and you're trying to take a software engineer or the head of a software engineer business, chief technology officers, whatever it may be. And you're trying to sort of tell them that we have this partner who can upskill people who are coming from a completely different background. So if it was, in my example, if it was a UX designer, we were taking like liberal arts students, we were taking journalists, creative type people who had that creative intuition. They were the perfect foundation to be upskilled into user design qualification. Similarly, we were taking people from data science, and we were looking at math, people that had a math background, and we were basically putting them through 12, 13 weeks of training. And you're trying to talk to a hiring manager about that and explaining that this person is going to be at the right level after 12, 13 weeks, even though they've never worked in digital before in their life. And this is somebody that's probably gone through an apprenticeship, degree, spent their whole life working to get to this position, training in this skill that's taken them probably 4, 5, 6 years to train in. And then they've worked in it for another 2, 5, 10, 15 years. And I'm trying to tell them that I have someone that has great behaviors, that wants this opportunity to grow, and we're going to put them through training for 12 to 14 weeks. And they just were like, that person cannot have a level that I will be able to work with. That person is not going to be able to come into my team. And that's the bit that was really tricky initially. And eventually we got to a point where we said, look, let's see what this person can come in. Let's take them on in a more of a junior type role to begin with. It is a try before you buy role. If the person comes in and they're not contributing as you expect, that's on me. I take the risk. I take the blame if it's not to an acceptable level. We brought them into the team, and he was really happy.
What gave you the confidence that they will have this, or a specific person, may not even be a group? How did you know that individual had the right behavior? What kind of process did you go through to check for those behaviors?
We do have testing. We do build the testing around from a behavioral perspective. It can be psychometric testing. It's about testing someone's learning agility. It's about testing their resilience. It's about testing their growth and their potential. And we put them through the test. We also will do interviews that are aligned very much to why would you like to do this? What's different about this? Are you committed individual? Because we didn't want individuals who were going to take the training and potentially leave after 3 months or leave after 9 months. We wanted people that were dying for an opportunity, wanted to be backed, wanted an opportunity to impress. So yes, we did build it around testing. We did build it around an assessment criteria from a video and a face-to-face perspective, which gave them a chance to really highlight what they can offer to us. And that was our way of validating that they were the right fit for the organization. We got to the point where we were comfortable putting them in front of the client because we felt that they wanted an opportunity and they could be trusted, and the client saw something different from a behavior perspective. And we're happy to kind of also match that investment.
That's a nice story. And what happened with the ones who actually you screened them for whatever reason they dropped out? What were the learns from the ones who dropped out for the next refining that process that you came up with?
There was maybe concerns of that person whether they're going to be suitable for that long-term environment. There was a few people that maybe come through the process that really were quite interested in upskilling into a new field, i.e. digital, but we felt that they maybe weren't going to be a retained option for our client. We didn't want them to kind of take that upskilling and potentially go somewhere else. In this instance, for the client, for them to really buy into this type of solution, they don't want to see us train them and then watch that person walk away to a competitor. So if that person was not selected for this opportunity, we use the results that come off the back of those psychometric reports and we give them feedback. We give them an opportunity to go away and go, this is why, these are things to work on, these are your strengths and these are your development areas, so that everyone who kind of came through our process, they weren't just a candidate that was going to be assessed. We were giving them something so that their employability journey was going to kind of continue moving forward.
Okay, this is great. My final question, the flip side of the coin, obviously people who are putting out those job specs for these candidates to be found, at least in my experience, job specs are a bit of a shopping list. You put everything and anything in there. There's like dreams and are looking for a unicorn. Yet it seems to be, in order for this behavior-first model to work, it will be much more productive if the job specs in the first place were put together with a behavior-centric approach. What are your tips and tricks for people who want to approach it from that perspective?
When it's a candidate-rich market, like it can be in certain fields right now, I think it's very easy to slip back into that mindset of putting as many barriers into that job description as you possibly can to get your numbers down. I think that's where we are with certain industries. What are they used to? They're used to experienced, ready candidates. I think my biggest winner with those was sitting down with them, helping them to understand, looking at their retention, looking at the market, the hiring data, looking at the rates they're paying. Has it increased? Has it not? Don't go crazy. I don't say, we're not going to change this. We're not going to change up the whole process, but let's just focus on one role. Let's get one person into your business and see how that person performs. And very quickly, that word of mouth gets round to business. Over time, it kind of shifts the whole culture to be a bit more open, future focused when it comes to their hiring. They start thinking differently. The example I gave you around the digital example, that hiring manager called me afterwards and he said, look, Dan, I want to make this a regular thing because I don't have the ability to bring in 5 or 10 or 15 per year, but I bring in 2 or 3 into my team. And not only did they surprise me about the level of intuition they had, about the level of actual ability they had, and the fact that they were able to hit the ground running. The one big thing he noticed was he had a real non-diverse group of people in that digital field. Now, there was a specific demographic that was very, very much dominating the workforce he had. And he was bringing these 2 people from completely different backgrounds, whether it was early careers, whether it was returners, etc. He was bringing in these different people that had a different way of working. They had a different level of creativity. They had a different level of challenge in the manager. Some of them were a bit younger, which meant that they had maybe were 15, 20 years different from their peers in the team. And he told me he deliberately brought those people in every year to freshen up his team, because not only did they come in, hit the ground running, the way that they were challenging the team, people that have been in that role for 10, 15 years, it got those people thinking. It got those people going, actually, now I need to step up my game a little bit. And it became a bit of a reverse mentoring exercise, because in the end, the juniors were challenging and making everyone think differently. But the seniors were actually educating the juniors on other things that maybe they hadn't got through the education system. time management, kind of how to work as part of these teams and managing deadlines. And it became a really nice dynamic where he said to me that every year he brought it in to kind of freshen up his workforce.
I love this freshening up the workforce and opening it up everybody's mind. Well, great. Thank you very much. That was
Problem.
great.
Good to speak to you.